All right, so continuing on with light color array, this is phase 2 or volume 2. So I'm going to continue on describing um, more things and getting into various lists. Okay, so yeah, the first list, like usual, I'll get into the arcs, and then again, there are all kinds of other lists as well. Another list that I want to talk about in this video is the list of VTOLs, the jets, which I will get into as I continue with this video. And there are some interesting, yeah, there are some interesting designs in it. So I think it's going to be, it can make for some interesting ideas. Okay, so with various lists, I will go and continue on with them. So the first list I'm going to talk about is the arcs, and I think the few that I have this time, these are somewhat more self-explanatory, so I don't know how much I'm going to describe them, but I will get into it. So okay, so the first arc I want to talk about is sincerity in works, sincerity in the way you create, and yeah, being sincere with the way you work on things and create things, and um, yeah, the diligence that goes into it and creating great things. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk. That's the first one I wanted to talk about. The next are somewhat more self-explanatory. So yeah, these are playfulness, courteousness, aristocracy, and the archetype of aristocrat. And the next arc is grandeur. Grandeur in you can think of grandeur in so many different ways. Think of a scene of grandeur. There are so many aspects that can be present in it, and they can they create an amplified state of grandeur in it. So in some interesting arcs here, you can perceive them in many different ways. Yeah, with I thought there was an interesting um, dynamic, I guess you could say, with sincerity, playfulness, and courteousness. I think those are some interesting emotions and interesting interactions they can create. Um, yeah, when there is maybe you can think of romantic courteousness and playfulness. I think it's some interesting, yeah, some interesting emotions there. Okay, so yeah, these are the arcs. So now I will get into, let's get into the motifs. Okay, so the first motif I want to talk about is cumulus type clouds, cumulus, and also cumulonimbus clouds. I think cumulus type clouds, they're so beautiful in the way they look, and the way they are these beautiful. They have these globes, and the way they have that contrast um, against a nice bright blue sky, and these white clouds create that contrast with those structures that are present in these clouds, and the way they rise and create those beautiful visuals. I think they're very beautiful cumulus type clouds, and also cumulonimbus clouds. You can think of, thunderstorm clouds and the kind of energy they kind of have, and they can be like enormous clouds. So it's an interesting motive to think in that way, that there is, like I was talking about previously with grandeur, there is some grandeur I feel in these cumulus type clouds and cumulonimbus clouds. And yeah, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. Yeah, there is, with cumulus type clouds, there's a certain symbolism of heavenly kind of energy in it with cumulus type clouds, and the way how grand they are, and you can think of them in certain more heavenly type of contexts, and the way, and also the colors, the way the white and blue create that nice contrast and dynamic. I think it looks they look very beautiful and amazing. And like I with the VTOL jets and the flying horses. You can imagine them in the context of various type of sky conditions, and you can imagine them with cumulus type clouds and cumulonimbus clouds. I think they would create a very interesting scene with these flying machines and these beautiful clouds. I thought this was a very interesting motif. I wanted to talk about it. Okay, and yeah, with cumulonimbus clouds, you can also imagine that thunderstorm energy. Um, Sometimes these clouds can be like there can be an atmosphere of that darkness and lightning and that kind of energetic ambience. So I think that's another interesting way of yeah, looking at these clouds. So there's a lot of different aesthetics here. Very interesting, some interesting energies here. So yeah, interesting motif. Okay, so the next motif, I've talked about this previously. I just wanted to add a few more thoughts to this. This motif is peacock. Now, I think these are such beautiful birds. Not okay. Okay, but I think we need some kind of a new word to describe them. I think they have such beauty in them, peacocks. So I thought an interesting name would be for peacock would be like a blue angel or a blue fairy. That's kind of how beautiful they are. So that's just something I wanted to add to that motif. I've talked about it previously, and I just think they're very beautiful, and just something I wanted to say about that. Okay, so the next motif is this is yeah, kind of working together with two of the previous motifs. Okay, motifs that I previously talked about. Okay, so this is thermal vision, and this goes on continues with the concepts of night vision and color vision, and now thermal vision. And I'm talking about the metaphysics of these concepts. Okay, so thermal vision, you can think of what this is seeing heat, seeing warmth. So in what kind of ways, what kind of metaphysical ways can you um, think of this? What kind of ways of perceptions and thinking does this concept make sense of thermal vision, sensing heat? Maybe it is sensing energy, maybe it is sensing emotions. I think emotions can have that heat in them. So I think it's an interesting concept of thermal vision, being able to see heat. I'm not talking necessarily in a literal sense. I'm talking in a more metaphorical and metaphysical sense. Okay, so that's an interesting, I thought it was kind of an interesting addition to the previous two of night vision and color vision. Okay, so, all right, so the next motif, I've kind of talked about them previously too. There's something to add here. These are Luna and Sol, the moon and the sun, and you can think of them together with night and day. And you can kind of imagine night and day as feminine and masculine. You can think of the night as feminine. You can think of the day as masculine. Now think of the longest night, midwinter, the winter solstice. You can think of this as celebration of the divine feminine. Now think of the longest day, the summer solstice, midsummer. You can think of this as a celebration of the divine masculine. So I thought it was kind of an interesting way of looking at this. And some interesting, like, what would you say? I don't know, some interesting ways of looking at these concepts. I thought it's a beautiful idea to think of uh, the winter solstice as a celebration of divine feminine, and yeah, and the summer solstice as a celebration of divine masculine. Obviously, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly this way. You can think of it in different ways, but I think this is an interesting way of looking at these events of winter solstice and summer solstice. I thought it was an interesting way of kind of thinking about it. Okay, so these are the motifs for now, and next, let me add a few thoughts to Pantheon. Okay, so all right, so I will get into that now.